The smell of burnt coffee permeated the small kitchen as Sarah felt the first contraction. It wasn't pain, not yet, just a subtle tightening, like an invisible hand testing her resilience. She stopped stirring the oatmeal, the wooden spoon suspended in midair, and waited. The morning silence stretched around her like a taut rope about to snap. 7 months. It was still 7 months. The wooden house creaked in the mountain wind, a familiar sound that used to soothe her, but now seemed to carry whispers of warning. Sarah rested her free hand on her rounded belly, feeling the baby stir in response to her touch. It was always like this. When she was tense, he was restless, as if he could already sense the weight of the world awaiting him. "It's okay," she murmured to herself, the words lost in the cold kitchen air. But her hands trembled as she resumed, stirring the oatmeal, and the coffee continued to burn on the stove. The truth was, nothing had been okay for months. Ever since she arrived at the New Dawn community, nestled in the mountains of rural Appalachia, Sarah felt like she was living. Unborrowed time, the unplanned pregnancy, the escape from the city, the unexpected welcome from people she barely knew. It all felt like a dream she couldn't fully wake from, or a nightmare. Sometimes it was hard to tell. Brother Michael always said God had led her there for a greater purpose. "You didn't come here by chance, Sister Sarah," he'd repeat in that deep, comforting voice that made the women of the community sigh with devotion. "Your child will be born blessed, under the protection of the Holy Family." But when Sarah looked into his eyes, icy blue, sharp as knives, she felt a shiver that had nothing to do with faith or protection. The oatmeal began to stick to the bottom of the pan. Sarah turned off the heat and stepped away from the stove, her hand still pressed against her belly. The contraction had passed, leaving only a hollow feeling in her stomach and a metallic taste in her mouth. She needed to eat something, for herself and the baby. But first, she needed to check the door. This ritual had become obsessive in recent weeks. 5-6 times a day, Sarah would walk to the front door, turn the key twice counterclockwise, pull the handle to make sure it was locked, then turn the key back into place. Sometimes she did this in the middle of the night, barefoot on the cold floor, guided only by the moonlight filtering through the homespun curtains. She knew it was ridiculous. The New Dawn community was one of the safest places she had ever known. 32 families living in harmony, sharing resources, raising children together, praying together. There was no crime, no violence, not even heated arguments. Brother Michael always said they had left the corrupt world behind, that within these walls they were protected by the purity of their intentions. So why did Sarah feel watched every step of the way? Why did she wake up in the middle of the night, certain that someone had tried to turn the handle of her door? Why, in the last 2 weeks, had she been finding footprints in the earth around her house? Footprints that weren't hers, nor those of the community children, nor any of the men she knew. The door was locked, as always. Sarah rested her forehead against the rough wood and closed her eyes. The baby kicked hard, as if protesting something, or asking for help. "Calm down, my love," she whispered. "Mommy will take care of you. Always." But as she said this, a part of her wondered if she would be able to keep that promise. The sound of footsteps on the porch made her jump away from the door. They were heavy, deliberate footsteps that stopped right in front of the entrance. Sarah held her breath, her heart beating so loudly that she was sure whoever was outside could hear it. 3 sharp knocks, a pause, 3 sharp knocks again. It was the code Brother Michael used when he wanted to speak to someone in private. Sarah knew because she had seen other women receive these visits. Always early, always when their husbands were working in the fields or tending to the animals. Always with that expectant and apprehensive expression when they opened the door. Sarah didn't have a husband. That made her special, according to Michael. "Pure," he said. "Chosen." She didn't feel pure or chosen. She felt alone and scared. "Sister Sarah," Michael's voice filtered through the wood, low and melodious. "I need to talk to you. It's about the baby." Sarah swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door, turning the key carefully to avoid making unnecessary noise. When she opened it, Michael stood there with that paternal smile everyone knew, warm, comforting, impossible to question. He was a handsome man, she admitted. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair combed back with a perfect part. He always wore simple clothes, cotton trousers, a white shirt, worn leather shoes, but there was something in the way he carried himself that suggested authority, power, as if the world naturally bowed to his presence. "May I come in?" he asked. Though he was already crossing the threshold, Sarah instinctively recoiled, her hand clutching the hem of her nightgown. Michael entered the small room and closed the door behind him, turning the key with a casual movement that made Sarah's stomach clench. "Sit down," he said, indicating the floral patterned sofa she had bought at a second-hand store. "You look tired." "I'm fine," Sarah lied, but sat down anyway. "What did you want to talk about regarding the baby?" Michael didn't answer immediately. He walked through the room, examining the few personal belongings Sarah had brought from her previous life. A few photographs, a plant she'd managed to keep alive, a rag doll that had belonged to her grandmother. He stopped before the framed photo on the makeshift shelf. Sarah with her parents, taken last Christmas, before the car accident that orphaned her at 23. "You never talk about your family," he commented, picking up the photograph. "There's nothing to talk about. They're dead. And the baby's father?" The question hung in the air like a stone dropped into a still pond. Sarah felt waves of discomfort spreading through her chest, her throat, until they reached her eyes in the form of tears she refused to shed. "I've told you I don't want to talk about it." Brother Michael put the photo back and turned to her. His blue eyes seemed brighter in the morning light, almost translucent. "Sister Sarah, you arrived here 5 months ago, pregnant, alone, without a convincing story about how you became pregnant or why you ran away. We took you in because that's what we do. We take in the lost, the hurt, those seeking redemption. But now your child is about to be born, and I need to know, is this baby a blessing or a curse?" Sarah stood up so quickly she felt dizzy. The baby kicked violently as if reacting to her fear. "What do you mean by that?" "Please, sit down. You'll hurt yourself." There was something in his voice, a gentle but unrelenting authority that made Sarah obey before she even decided to. Brother Michael approached and knelt before her, his large, calloused hands resting on her knees over the fabric of her nightgown. "Sarah, you arrived here haunted. Anyone can see that. You don't sleep right, you don't eat right, you lock the door 5 times a night. You talk in your sleep, you know? The walls are thin here. We hear you." Sarah's heart pounded. "What do I say?" "You apologize. You say you didn't mean to hurt anyone, that it was an accident." The tears came then, hot and abundant, carrying months of repressed guilt. Brother Michael didn't move, just waited, his hands still warm on her knees. "I had no choice," Sarah whispered finally. "He was going to hurt me. He was going to hurt the baby. Who was going to hurt you?" "Rodrigo, the baby's father." Brother Michael nodded slowly as if he already knew. "Tell me," and Sarah told him. Perhaps it was the relief of finally being able to share the burden she'd carried alone for so many months. Perhaps it was the way Brother Michael looked at her, without judgment, only with infinite patience. Or perhaps it was simply the desperation of a woman who had kept secrets for too long. She told him about Rodrigo, the boyfriend who had become possessive after they discovered the pregnancy, how he wanted her to have an abortion, and when she refused, how he began to control her, to isolate her from her friends, to yell and threaten. How one December night, when she said she was leaving, he pushed her against the wall and said that if she tried to leave, he would kill her and the baby. How she grabbed the kitchen knife when he lunged at her. How the blood spread across the kitchen floor while Rodrigo stared at her in surprise, his hand pressed against the gash in his neck. How she fled that same night, leaving everything behind, driving non-stop until the car broke down in a small town where she met a woman at a gas station who told her about New Dawn, about Brother Michael, about a place where lost people could start over. When she finished speaking, Sarah felt empty, hollow, as if she had removed something essential from within herself and didn't know how to put it back. Brother Michael stood up and walked to the window. He stood there for a long time, looking at the mountains that surrounded the community like protective arms. "Did you kill that man?" he asked without turning around. "I don't know. There was a lot of blood. I didn't wait to see if..." Sarah. There was something different in his voice now, something colder. "Did you kill that man?" Sarah closed her eyes. "Yes, I think so." Brother Michael turned, and when Sarah saw his expression, she felt a fear unlike anything she had ever felt before. It wasn't anger she saw in his eyes, it was satisfaction. "Excellent," he said and smiled. "And then you're ready." Ready for what? But Brother Michael was already walking toward the door, turning the key, opening it to the cold morning air. "To fulfill your purpose here, Sister Sarah. To give birth to the future of New Dawn." He left, closing the door behind him, leaving Sarah alone with the sound of her own rapid breathing and the growing feeling that she had just made a terrible mistake. The baby kicked again, harder now, and Sarah had the strange impression that it was trying to warn her about something. But warn her about what? And why had Brother Michael seemed so pleased to know that she was capable of killing? Sarah spent the rest of the morning trying not to think about the conversation, but it was impossible. Brother Michael's words echoed in her mind like echoes in an empty cave. To give birth to the future of New Dawn. What did that mean? She tried to distract herself by doing housework. She washed the breakfast dishes, swept the floor, changed the bed sheets. But with every movement, she felt as if she were being watched. She looked out the window several times and saw no one. But the feeling persisted. It was when she was hanging clothes on the clothesline in the backyard that she saw Eleanor approaching. Eleanor was one of the oldest women in the community, one of the first to follow Brother Michael when he founded New Dawn 8 years ago. She was around 40, her graying hair always pulled back in a tight bun, and a perpetually serious expression that made the children hide when she passed. "Sarah," she said, stopping a few feet from the clothesline. "I need to talk to you." There was urgency in Eleanor's voice, and she kept glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to appear. "What is it?" Sarah left the sheet she was hanging and approached. Eleanor took her arm and pulled her behind the house, where the trees grew closer together, creating a natural curtain of privacy. "Brother Michael came to see you today." It wasn't a question. "Yes, but how did you..." "I know why he came to see me too 3 years ago. And Joanna 5 years ago, and Clara before she got pregnant." Sarah felt the blood run cold in her veins. "What are you talking about?" Eleanor looked around once more, then leaned closer. When she spoke, her voice was just a raspy whisper. "New Dawn isn't what you think it is, Sarah. Brother Michael isn't who you think he is, and you need to get out of here before your baby is born, or you'll never see the outside world again." "I don't understand." "The children," Eleanor continued, the words tumbling out as if she had little time. "Have you ever paid attention to the children here? How many are under 5? Sarah frowned, trying to remember. There were many children in New Dawn. It was one of the things that had most attracted her to the place, but now that Eleanor mentioned it, 12. Eleanor answered for her. 12 children born here in the last 5 years. Do you know how many are still here? Sarah's stomach churned. How many? 4. What happened to the others? Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, as if the question caused physical pain. Brother Michael says they were adopted, special families chosen by God. He says, it's an honor that our children are destined for great things in the outside world. And you believe that? I did, until my daughter turned 2 and Brother Michael came to tell me it was time for her to go to her new family. Until I asked where she was going, and he told me I didn't need to know, that it would be easier that way. Until I tried to resist, and he showed me what happens to mothers who don't cooperate. Eleanor pulled down the collar of her blouse, revealing an irregular scar on her neck, as if someone had tried to cut her. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. He has men, Sarah. Men who do what he says without question. And he has other things. Things he uses to keep people in line. A sudden contraction hit Sarah, stronger than the first. She doubled over, her hand clutching her belly, and Eleanor held her by the shoulders. It's starting, isn't it? Eleanor asked. You're going into labor. It can't be. I still have 2 months. Brother Michael knows things, Eleanor said grimly. He always knew when our babies were going to be born, even when we didn't. He has methods. Another contraction, stronger. Sarah moaned, and Eleanor helped her lean against a tree. Listen to me carefully, Eleanor said, her voice tense but determined. There's a trail leading down the mountain on the east side of the community. Follow it until you find a dirt road. From there it's 9 miles to the nearest town. There's a hospital there. I can't just leave. You can and you will. Because if you stay here, you'll give birth in Brother Michael's hands, and he'll take your baby, and you'll never see it again. And if you try to resist... Eleanor didn't need to finish the sentence. The scar on her neck said it all. Why didn't you leave? Sarah asked. Why are you still here? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Because my daughter is still here. Somewhere. And I need to find her. Another contraction. Sarah felt fluid run down her legs and knew there was no more time for questions. Go now, Eleanor whispered. While he still thinks you're sleeping in the afternoon, take only the essentials. And Sarah, if anyone follows you, don't. Stop, don't look back, just run. Sarah nodded, the pain and fear mixing into an animal urgency that made her move without thinking. She ran back to the house, threw some clothes into a bag, grabbed the little money she had and the keys to the car she bought at a used car dealership in the city. When she went out the back door, Eleanor had already disappeared. Sarah walked as fast as she could towards the east side of the community, stopping with each contraction, breathing deeply, trying to keep the panic under control. The trail was where Eleanor said it would be. A narrow gap between the trees that looked like it hadn't been used in months. Sarah looked back one last time, seeing the houses of New Dawn scattered across the valley like pieces of an innocent puzzle. Then she entered the woods and started down. The first 2 hours were the worst. The trail was steep and slippery, full of roots and loose rocks that made her stumble. The contractions came every 20 minutes, paralyzing her with pain. So intense that she had to lean against the trees until it passed. But as she descended, Sarah felt something changing inside her. Not just the approaching pain of childbirth, it was something deeper. A fierce determination she had never felt before. She had killed once to protect her baby. She would again, if she had to. It was while she was crossing a creek that she heard the dogs. The sound came from above, from the direction of the community, and there was no mistaking what it meant. They were being followed. Sarah quickened her pace, the cold water soaking her shoes, the baby shifting restlessly inside her as if it too sensed the danger. The dirt road Eleanor had mentioned appeared about an hour later, a brown ribbon winding between the hills, empty and silent under the afternoon sun. But her car wasn't there. Sarah stopped in the middle of the road, spinning in circles, trying to understand. She was certain she'd left the car on the shoulder of the main road before taking the trail that led to New Dawn. But now there was nothing there but tire tracks in the dry earth. A contraction doubled her over, and when she straightened up, she saw headlights approaching in the distance. It was a black pickup truck, kicking up a cloud of dust, heading straight for her. Sarah couldn't see who was driving because of the sun's glare on the windshield, but something about the way the vehicle moved, slowly, purposefully, predatory, made every survival instinct in her body scream. She ran off the road and into the woods on the other side, the weight of her bag banging against her back, the baby kicking violently with every step. Behind her, she heard the truck stop and doors slamming. "Sarah!" Brother Michael's voice echoed through the trees. "You're hurting the baby. Come back now and we'll help you." Sarah didn't stop. She ran through the trees, branches scratching her arms, roots tripping her. Her breath was ragged, her heart pounding so fast she felt like it would burst. Another contraction hit her, stronger than all the others. Sarah fell to her knees, her hands clenching the damp earth, a scream forming in her throat. When the pain subsided, she heard footsteps approaching. "I found her!" a male voice shouted. It wasn't Brother Michael. It was someone younger, with an accent she didn't recognize. Sarah got up and kept running, but her movements were getting slower, more clumsy. The baby was coming, ready or not, and she was rapidly losing strength. That's when she saw the clearing. It was a circular space, in the middle of the woods, covered in soft grass and surrounded by ancient trees that formed a natural wall. In the center was a circle of blackened stones, as if someone had built fires there many times. And scattered around the circle, half buried in the grass, were bones. Not animal bones, too small, too delicate. Sarah felt bile rise in her throat, but she didn't have time to fully process what she was seeing. The footsteps were closer now, and she could hear voices, at least 3 men, maybe more. She ran to the other side of the clearing and continued down the mountain, but she knew she couldn't go much farther. The baby was coming, the contractions were coming every few minutes, and her legs trembled with exhaustion. That's when she heard the sound of water. She followed the sound until she found a creek running between the rocks, wider and deeper than the one before. The water was cold and clear, and Sarah knelt at the bank to drink and wash her face. When she stood up, she saw the cabin. It was small and looked abandoned, made of grey wood that blended with the landscape. The door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. Sarah approached cautiously, pushed the door open, and peered inside. The cabin was simple. One room with an iron bed covered by a moldy mattress, a wooden chair, and a fireplace filled with old ashes. But it was dry and it was empty, and when another contraction hit her, Sarah decided it was the best option she had. She went inside, closed the door behind her, and pushed the chair against it. It wasn't much, but maybe it would be enough to give her the time she needed. Because now she was sure the baby was coming, and it was coming fast. Sarah lay down on the bed, trying to breathe, as she had learned in the childbirth classes she'd taken when she still lived in the city. But this was different from anything they had taught. This was primal, animal, a force of nature that was tearing her apart. And outside, ever closer, she could hear the dogs barking. Part 2. The baby's first cry filled the cabin like a hymn of victory and despair. Sarah held him to her chest, her hands trembling as she wiped the blood and amniotic fluid from his red, wrinkled face. It was a boy, small, but with strong lungs and a fierce will to live that made her cry with relief. She had done it. She had given birth to her son, far from Brother Michael, far from New Dawn, far from anything that could hurt him. But as she cradled him, listening to his rapid breathing and feeling the minuscule weight of his body, Sarah knew this was only the first battle. The war was far from over. The sound of the dogs was closer now. She could hear them sniffing around the cabin, their paws scratching against the wooden walls. Soon they would hear the babies cry, if they hadn't already. Sarah got up with difficulty, still bleeding, still aching, the baby pressed against her chest. She needed to find a way out of there, but where? She was in the middle of the woods, without a car, without help, with a newborn who needed medical attention. That's when she heard Brother Michael's voice outside. "Sarah, I know you're in there." His voice was calm, almost gentle, but there was something underneath it that made Sarah's skin crawl. "You did a brave thing, giving birth alone like that. But now you need help. You and the baby need medical attention." Sarah didn't respond. She nestled the baby closer to her chest, feeling its tiny heart beating against hers. "I understand you're scared," Brother Michael continued. "Eleanor filled your head with lies, didn't she? She did this to other women too. It's a sickness of the mind, you know? Paranoia. We tried to help her, but sometimes people just can't accept the truth. The truth." Sarah thought of the bones in the clearing, the scar on Eleanor's neck, the 8 children who had disappeared from New Dawn. "The truth is, you killed a man. Sarah," Brother Michael's voice was closer now, probably on the other side of the door. "A man named Roger Smith, 28 years old, a civil engineer, son of a respectable family from the city. You stabbed him in the neck and ran, leaving him to die on the kitchen floor of his apartment." Sarah's blood ran cold. How did he know Roger's last name? How did he know about his family, his profession? "The police have been looking for you for 5 months, Sarah. First-degree murder. Did you know that? Of course you didn't. Because you've been living in a bubble here with us, protected from the real world. But I know. I always have." The baby started crying again, a small, desperate sound that echoed through the cabin. Sarah rocked him gently, trying to soothe him, but her own tears were falling on his little face. "Listen to that cry," Brother Michael said, and Sarah could hear the smile in his voice. "He's hungry. He needs milk, warmth, a clean crib. How many hours do you think you can keep him alive here, Sarah? A day? 2? Sarah looked around the cabin, desperately searching for another way out. There was a small window in the back wall, but it was boarded up from the outside. And even if she could get the boards off, how would she do it without making a noise? How would she run through the woods with a newborn in her arms? "I have a proposition for you," Brother Michael continued. "Open the door, give me the baby, and I'll help you escape the police. New identity, new passport, enough money to start over anywhere in the world. All you have to do is leave the boy with us. He'll have a good life, I promise. A better life than you could give him as a fugitive." "Liar," Sarah whispered, the word escaping like a prayer. What was that? This time she spoke louder, her voice trembling but determined. "I said you're a liar. I know what you do to children." Silence on the other side of the door. Then the sound of footsteps pacing around the cabin. Sarah heard Brother Michael talking in a low voice to someone, words she couldn't make out. Then, without warning, the boarded-up window exploded inward. Pieces of wood flew through the air as 2 men entered through the opening, moving with the precision of someone who had done this many times before. Sarah screamed and ran to the far corner, shielding the baby with her body, but there was nowhere to go. One of the men was young, with blonde hair and empty eyes that reminded her of a shark. The other was older, with a grey beard and enormous hands that looked capable of breaking bones without effort. Both wore simple clothes, jeans and t-shirts, but carried knives at their waists. "Get the baby." Brother Michael's voice came from outside. "Be careful not to hurt him." Sarah huddled further into the corner, the baby crying against her chest. "No, you can't." The younger man approached, his hands outstretched. "It'll be easier if you just hand him over, Mom. Nobody has to get hurt." "My son!" Sarah screamed, and something inside her snapped. The same animal fury she had, felt the knife she stabbed Roger surged up her spine like liquid fire. As the man reached for the baby, Sarah bit him. It wasn't a gentle or hesitant bite. It was the bite of a cornered animal, deep and ferocious, tearing a chunk of flesh from his palm. The man screamed and recoiled, blood streaming between his fingers. "You bitch," he growled, pulling a knife from his waist. But Sarah was already moving. With the baby pressed tightly against her chest with one arm, she grabbed the wooden chair that had been leaning against the door and raised it above her head. As the man lunged with his knife, she brought the chair down with all her might. The wood splintered against his skull. The man stumbled, his eyes rolling back, and fell to the ground like a sack of potatoes. The older man growled a word Sarah didn't understand and advanced on her. But he was big and slow, and Sarah was fueled by the desperation of a mother protecting her child. She dodged him and ran for the door, which was now unlocked. Brother Michael was waiting outside. He didn't seem surprised to see her emerge from the cabin with blood on her clothes and a wild look in her eyes. In fact, he smiled, a slow, satisfied smile that made Sarah's stomach churn. "Impressive," he said. "You're even stronger than I imagined." Sarah stumbled back, tripping over roots, the baby crying in her arms. Around the cabin, she could see other men, at least 5, all armed, all watching her with the same empty expression she had seen in the blonde man. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice hoarse from screaming. "What we've always wanted," Brother Michael replied. "You, Sarah, you and your special gift." "What gift? I don't have any gift." Brother Michael laughed, a sound that echoed among the trees like a crow's call. "Of course you do. You're a killer, Sarah, a natural-born killer. Roger wasn't the first, was he?" Sarah felt the world spin around her. "What are you talking about?" "That car accident that killed your parents," Brother Michael said, slowly circling her like a predator stalking its prey. "But you were driving, weren't you? It was a rainy night, you'd had a fight with them about something, and suddenly the car went off the road and hit a tree. It was an accident. Was it? Or did you turn the wheel just enough so the impact hit only their side?" "No!" Sarah screamed, but Brother Michael's words were unearthing memories she had buried for so long. The fight about the boyfriend her parents didn't approve of. The rage she felt when they told her she was irresponsible, that she was throwing her life away. The rain on the windshield, the near-zero visibility, and then the moment of decision. The wheel in her hands, the tree looming closer, the choice she made in a split second. "You see," Brother Michael said softly, "you always knew. Deep down, you always knew you were different, that you had an ability other people don't have." Sarah was trembling now, not just from fear, but from recognition. Because he was right. She had always known there was something wrong with her, something dark that set her apart from others. The ease with which she had grabbed the knife that night with Roger, the coldness she felt as she watched him bleed, the complete absence of remorse. "New Dawn isn't a religious community," Brother Michael continued. "It's a breeding ground, a place where we raise people like you, people with special potential. You raise killers. We raise problem solvers, people willing to do what needs to be done without hesitation, without guilt. It's a rare talent, Sarah, and it's hereditary." The baby had stopped crying and was now looking at Brother Michael with dark, alert eyes. There was something in the newborn's expression, an unnerving calmness, an intensity that wasn't normal in a baby only minutes old. "Your son already shows the signs," Brother Michael said, extending a hand toward the baby. "See how he looks at me? No fear. Already calculating, already learning." Sarah held the baby closer to her chest. "He's not what you think he is." "Oh, then why do you protect him with such ferocity? Why are you willing to kill to keep him safe?" "Because you recognize in him what exists in you." Sarah felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Even if it were true, even if I were what you think I am, That doesn't mean I'm going to hand my son over to you." "Oh, but you will," Brother Michael said, and gestured with his hand. The men approached, forming a circle around Sarah. She slowly turned, looking for a gap, a possibility of escape, but there wasn't any. She was surrounded. "Do you know what will happen if you continue to resist?" Brother Michael asked. "We'll take the baby anyway, and then we'll hand her over to the police. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, and your son will grow up never knowing who his mother was." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the choices she had made, all the choices that had brought her to this moment. The death of her parents, the death of Roger, the escape to New Dawn. It had all been part of a larger plan, a game she didn't even know she was playing. "But," Brother Michael continued, "if you cooperate, if you accept your place with us, your son will have everything. Education, training, a purpose in life. He will become something extraordinary." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at the baby in her arms. He had fallen back asleep, his tiny fists clenched, his breath soft and regular. He looked so normal, so innocent, but she could feel, in the way he moved, in the intensity of his gaze when he was awake, that Brother Michael might be right. Perhaps there was something different about him too. But that didn't mean she was going to give up. "You want me to cooperate?" she asked, her voice suddenly calm. Brother Michael smiled. "I hope so." Sarah nodded slowly, as if making a decision. Then, without warning, she screamed as loud as she could and tossed the baby upwards. It wasn't far, just a few inches, but it was enough to make all the men look up instinctively. And in that moment of distraction, Sarah ran. She ran like she had never run in her life, the baby safe in her arms, branches scratching her face, rocks cutting her bare feet. Behind her she could hear Brother Michael shouting orders, heavy footsteps in pursuit, dogs barking. But she had an advantage. She knew these mountains now. She had spent 5 months exploring every trail, every stream, every clearing, and she knew where she was running. The main road was a mile away, a ribbon of asphalt that cut through the mountain and led to the nearest town. If she could get there, if she could stop a car. The baby cried again, weaker now, and Sarah realized he was turning pale. He needed medical attention, and he needed it soon. But first, she needed to survive. She ran through the woods for another 20 minutes, stopping only when the postpartum contractions became too intense to ignore. She could hear her pursuers still behind her, but farther away now. Maybe she was gaining ground. That's when she heard the sound of an engine. Sarah stopped and listened intently. A car came speeding down the main road. She was closer than she'd thought. She changed direction and ran towards the sound, pushing through the dense undergrowth until she finally saw the gray asphalt through the trees. A car was pulled over on the shoulder, a white Corolla with Appalachian plates. Sarah stumbled out of the woods, waving one arm while holding the baby with the other. The driver was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a worried expression. "Good God," he said, getting out of the car. "What happened to you?" "Please," Sarah gasped. "My baby, he needs a hospital, please." The man didn't hesitate. He opened the back door of the car and helped Sarah inside. "The nearest hospital is in a nearby town. It's about 20 minutes. Hold on tight." As the car pulled away from the mountain, Sarah looked out the back window and saw figures emerging from the woods. Brother Michael was there, standing in the middle of the road, watching her leave. Even from a distance, she could see the expression on his face, not of defeat, but of patience, as if he knew she would eventually return, or as if he knew where to find her. The hospital was small, but clean, and the doctors were efficient. They took the baby immediately to the neonatal ICU. He was dehydrated and hypoglycemic, but stable. Sarah was treated for postpartum lacerations and blood loss, but she was also stable. It was while she was lying in the hospital bed, looking out the window at the city lights below, that she realized there was a problem. No one had asked her name, no one had asked for any documents, and when she inquired about the admission procedures, the nurse just smiled and said that everything had been taken care of. By whom? Sarah tried to get out of bed, but a wave of dizziness forced her back down. Something was wrong, very wrong. That's when the door to the room opened and Brother Michael walked in. He was wearing different clothes now, a well-tailored dark suit, expensive leather shoes. He looked like a successful businessman, not the leader of an isolated mountain cult. "How are you feeling?" he asked, sitting down in the chair beside the bed as if he were a concerned relative. Sarah tried to scream but found she couldn't. She tried to move, but her limbs felt heavy, disconnected. "A mild sedative," Brother Michael explained, seeing her panicked expression. "Just to keep you calm while we talk." "My baby," Sarah managed to whisper. "He's fine, being cared for by competent professionals, and he will continue to be cared for as long as you are reasonable." Brother Michael leaned forward, his hands clasped in his lap. "You don't understand yet, do you? The scope of what we have here. New Dawn is just a small part of a much larger network. We have people in hospitals, in the police, in the government. We have resources you can't even imagine." Sarah fought against the sedative, trying to keep her mind clear. Why all this? Because the world needs people like us, Sarah. People willing to make the tough decisions, to do what needs to be done. And you are special, even among the special. He pulled a tablet from his jacket and showed her a series of photos. It took Sarah a moment to understand what she was seeing, and when she did, her blood ran cold. They were pictures of the missing children from New Dawn, but they weren't dead. They were alive, grown up, in different countries around the world. One was at a military base in Syria, another at an embassy in Afghanistan, a third at an executive meeting in London. They weren't killed, Brother Michael said softly. They were trained, educated, transformed into the most effective instruments the world has ever seen. "Assassins," Sarah whispered. "Problem solvers. And your son has the potential to be the best of them all." Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not going to let you take him." "Oh, Sarah," Brother Michael said, and there was genuine pity in his voice. "You don't have a choice. Because you see," he showed another image on the tablet. It was a photo of Sarah with Roger, taken months before his death. They were smiling, embracing, looking like a happy couple. "The police aren't looking for you anymore, brother," Michael said, "because officially you're dead. You died in childbirth trying to deliver alone in the woods. Very tragic. Your baby was found by a local farmer and turned over to social services." Sarah's heart stopped. "No. There's a death certificate with your name on it. A body was found in a ravine near New Dawn. Unrecognizable, of course, but with your clothes, your bag. DNA confirmed through hair we collected from your house." Sarah tried to process what he was saying. "If she was officially dead, then no one is looking for you," Brother Michael confirmed. "No one will look for the baby. For all intents and purposes, you two simply disappeared." The drug was taking effect, making Sarah drowsy and confused. But a part of her mind still fought, still searched for a way out. "Eleanor," she whispered. "Eleanor knows the truth." Brother Michael smiled sadly. "Eleanor had an accident last night. Fell off a cliff while searching for you. Very tragic as well. Sarah felt something break inside her. Eleanor, who had tried to save her. Eleanor, who was still searching for her own lost daughter. Dead because of her. Now," Brother Michael said, rising from the chair, "you have a choice. You can accept the situation and join us willingly. Your son will be trained here in Brazil, where you can visit him from time to time. Or she can continue to resist, and he'll be sent to one of our international facilities, where you'll never see him again." Sarah tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The sedative was taking hold, pulling her into a seemingly endless darkness. "I'll give you a week to decide," Brother Michael said, walking toward the door. "Rest well, Sarah. You'll need your strength for what lies ahead." When she woke, Sarah was in a different bed, in a different room. It wasn't the hospital anymore. It was a simple but comfortable room, with white walls, a window overlooking a garden, and a door she discovered was locked from the outside. There were clean clothes on a chair beside the bed, a small but functional bathroom, and a tray of food on the nightstand. There was also a note: "Your son is well and being cared for. When you are ready to see him, simply knock on the door." Sarah crumpled the note and threw it on the floor. Then she went to the window and looked out. The garden was surrounded by a high wall, and beyond the wall she could see mountains. She was still near New Dawn then, but exactly where and how to get out? She spent the next 3 days exploring every inch of the room, looking for some weakness, some possibility of escape. But the place had been designed to keep her contained. The window had invisible bars, bulletproof glass that couldn't be broken. The door was solid steel. Even the bathroom had been built in such a way that she couldn't hurt herself or create makeshift weapons. On the 4th day, she knocked on the door. The woman who answered was young, with blonde hair and kind eyes. She wore nurse's scrubs and spoke with an accent Sarah couldn't place. "Would you like to see your baby?" she asked in English, with a foreign accent. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. The nurse led her through clean white corridors, past other locked doors, other windows with invisible bars. The place looked like a hospital, but Sarah could feel it was something more, something worse. The nursery was at the end of the hall. It was a large, brightly lit room with about a dozen cribs arranged in neat rows. Each crib held a baby, and each baby was being monitored by sophisticated medical equipment. Sarah's son was in the crib on the far right. He had grown in the last few days. He was chubbier, more alert. When she approached, he looked at her with those dark, intense eyes, and Sarah was sure he recognized her. "Can I hold him?" she asked. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. For a few minutes, Sarah took the baby in her arms and held him close to her chest. He was solid and warm, and he smelled like all babies, of milk and powder and promise. For a moment, everything else disappeared. There was only her and her son, and the fierce love she felt for him. "He's beautiful," the nurse said. "Very bright, too, already showing signs of advanced development." Sarah looked at the other cribs. "Who are the other babies?" "Other special projects, like your son." Sarah felt a chill. "Projects?" The nurse realized she'd said something wrong. "I meant other special children. Children of people like you." But Sarah had seen enough. On the nursery walls were charts and graphs, numbers and codes she didn't understand, but she could read some of the words. Developmental protocol, aggression indices, operational potential. They weren't raising babies. They were raising weapons. "I want to speak to Brother Michael," Sarah said. The nurse seemed relieved. "Of course, he's expecting you." Brother Michael received her in a room that looked like an executive office, a mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with books. There were also pictures on the walls. Brother Michael with politicians, with generals, with people. Sarah recognized from newspapers but couldn't name. "You've seen your son," he said. It wasn't a question. "I have, and I've seen the others too." Brother Michael nodded. "So you understand the magnitude of what we do here." Sarah sat in the chair opposite his desk, the baby still in her arms. "I understand you're monsters. We're pragmatists. The world is a dangerous place, Sarah, full of bad people doing bad things. Someone needs to stop them. And you think bringing children into the world only to turn them into assassins is the answer." Brother Michael leaned forward. You killed 2 people, Sarah, maybe 3 if you count your parents. You did it to protect yourself, to protect your son. How is that different from what we do here? Because I had no choice. And these children will have no choice either, but they'll have something you didn't. Training, purpose, a family that understands and accepts their special nature. Sarah looked down at the baby in her arms. He had fallen asleep, his tiny fists relaxed, his breathing soft. He looked so normal, so innocent. "And if I agree?" she asked. "If I agree to stay, to let you train him, what happens to me?" Brother Michael smiled. "You become part of the family. You help train the other mothers, help care for the other children. You live a comfortable life with purpose. Like a prisoner, like a valuable collaborator." Sarah was silent for a long time, thinking. Then she looked up at Brother Michael. "Can I have a few days to think?" "Of course, but not many. The sooner we start his training, the better." Sarah nodded and rose to leave. But as she reached the door, she turned. "Brother Michael?" "Yes?" "How many mothers have accepted your offer willingly?" Brother Michael smiled, but there was something cold in the smile. "All of them, Sarah. Eventually, all of them." Sarah returned to her room, her mind racing. There was something in the way Brother Michael said that last phrase, "eventually," that made her realize he wasn't just talking about persuasion. He was talking about breaking their resistance by any means necessary. That night, Sarah feigned sleep while she plotted. There was one thing Brother Michael didn't know about her, something she herself had only recently discovered. She wasn't just an assassin. She was a very, very good assassin, and it was time Brother Michael found that out.